Today, the channel will present the true story of our dear follower Jessica, who ended up liking her teacher more than she should have, and the two ended up getting involved in a way that will surprise you. My name is Jess, and I will introduce myself to you. I am 26 years old, with long black hair that shines in the light, reflecting a bluish hue that draws a lot of attention. My eyes are large and a deep blue, almost hypnotizing. My cheeks always seem slightly flushed, and my body has the generous curves that many associate with Brazilian beauty. Wide hips that contrast with my thin waist. From an early age, I received many compliments on my physique, but I learned that true confidence comes from something much deeper. I have always believed that with effort, everything works out. When I chose the technical course in mechanical engineering, I knew it would be difficult, but I never imagined that the second semester would be so overwhelming. Advanced mathematics, thermodynamics, complex projects. Sometimes, I felt like I was drowning in an endless sea of formulas and calculations. That feeling of helplessness made me question my choices, but giving up was never an option. It was during a particularly difficult private lesson that Professor Jake noticed my desperation. He was a man who exuded an almost magnetic calm, as if nothing could shake his confidence. His eyes had the ability to see beyond appearances, accurately capturing what the students were feeling. At the end of the class, as I slowly put away my materials, he approached. His presence was so striking that it seemed to make the room around me quiet. "Jessica, are you okay?" he asked, his deep voice carrying a tone of care that sounded almost intimate. "You seem worried about the subjects." I looked at him and the words came out before I could stop them. "I can't keep up. I'm struggling with almost everything," I admitted, feeling my face flush. It was humiliating to admit my weakness, but something in the way he looked at me made me trust. He offered me a smile that seemed to disarm all the tension I carried. It was a smile that said, "It's okay. We'll figure something out. I can help you. How about we schedule some private lessons? We can go at your own pace, no rush." His offer was matter of fact, but there was something in the way he said it, in the intensity of his gaze fixed on mine, that made my heart beat faster. It wasn't just academic help he was offering. There was a connection there, something I couldn't quite describe. I clung to his offer like a castaway to a piece of driftwood in the open ocean. That possibility of support was all I needed at that moment. What I didn't know, however, was that these private lessons would be much more than just reinforcement. They would be the beginning of something that would transform my life in ways I could never have foreseen. The first private lesson took place in the college study room, a simple place, but one that seemed to carry a different weight that afternoon. Jake sat across from me with that confident demeanor that always made him seem so sure of himself. He began to explain the equations patiently, and for the first time, everything seemed to make sense. His steady, measured voice seemed to enter straight into my mind, organizing everything that had previously been chaos. But then, in the middle of the explanation, he stopped and looked at me in a way that made my heart skip a beat. The air in the room seemed to have changed, becoming heavier, as if something was about to happen. "Jessica," he said, lowering his voice to an almost intimate tone, "I'll be blunt. I can continue to help you with your classes, but I hope you'll consider spending time with me beyond that." I froze, as if he'd just dropped a bombshell. I felt my face heat up, and the silence between us seemed to last an eternity. It wasn't as if I hadn't picked up on his hints before, but hearing those words so clearly had an effect on me. He was handsome, charming, and had a way of making anyone feel special when he was around. But this was still unexpected. I left with my head spinning, my heart racing, and my mind a jumble of thoughts. I needed his help with my classes, that was for sure, but accepting his offer meant entering a whole new territory, one I wasn't sure I was ready to explore. I spent the entire night tossing and turning, trying to convince myself that I could ignore it, move on as if nothing had happened. But the truth was that the idea of saying yes wouldn't leave my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the way he looked at me, hear the tone of his voice, feel the tension that seemed to hold the air between us. I started to think that it wouldn't be a bad thing. He was quite attractive, he had a nice body. I felt my body start to change at the thought of him, a wave of heat going through my body and concentrating in certain parts that made me love the idea. I would accept. It would be good for both of us. The next morning, after hesitating for what seemed like ages, I texted him before I could change my mind. The silence that followed was deafening. My heart was beating so fast I felt like I could hear it. I knew this would change everything, but for some reason, the anticipation of finding out what would come next was stronger than the fear. The classes continued, and Jake proved day after day how brilliant he was. With him, I was finally beginning to understand things that had previously seemed impossible. It was as if he had a gift for simplifying the complicated, for translating the chaos of numbers into something that made sense. But it wasn't just his explanations that kept me there. Over time, the boundaries between teacher and student began to blur in a way I couldn't control. He always started his classes with something that went beyond the content. Sometimes he would talk about a band he discovered, other times he would ask about my favorite movies, and every now and then he would want to know about me. My life outside of college, my ambitions, even my fears. These moments made things less formal, but closer, more intimate. One night, we were in class, surrounded by scribbled papers and formulas scattered across the table. He was explaining a complicated calculation, but to be honest, my mind was elsewhere. I watched him. The way he gestured as he spoke, the confident tone of his voice, the sparkle in his eyes when he realized I finally understood something. It was mesmerizing. And before I knew it, we were talking more about ourselves than anything related to engineering. Have you ever thought about dropping everything and doing something completely different? I asked without really thinking, just to keep listening to him talk. Maybe. But I guess some things you just don't give up just because they're worth it, he replied with a smile that left me speechless for a few seconds. That night, when class ended, he got up to walk me to the door, as he always did. But this time something was different. As I reached for the doorknob, he grabbed my hand. It was a simple gesture, but his touch burned into my skin, as if it carried the weight of the unspoken words. We stood there, in a silence that spoke louder than any conversation. He tilted his head slightly and, with a teasing smile, said, "Now it's time to pick me up from class." My heart raced, and the air seemed to disappear from my lungs. I had been feeling love for him for some time, and those words were the spark that was missing. In that moment, all the tension that had been building up between us finally found its way out, and for the first time we stopped resisting what seemed inevitable. Now here I am, with my heart beating faster than I could have imagined. What started as a simple exchange of favors, something that seemed so innocent, has now turned into something that I no longer know how to explain. I like him, and I like him in a way that goes beyond what I thought I was capable of feeling. But at the same time, there is a part of me that screams that this could go wrong. He's my teacher, we're pushing boundaries, breaking rules in ways I never thought possible, and yet I can't get him out of my head. It's not just the way he makes me feel smarter, but more capable, like I have a greater purpose to fulfill. It's the way he makes me feel alive, with an energy I didn't know existed within me. Every time our eyes meet, something inside me awakens, and I wonder if he feels the same, if he feels this chemistry that seems to pull us toward each other, as if it was something inevitable. With every class, every moment we're together, I just want more. I want to make this something real, something that's just ours. But I can't stop wondering if it's worth the risk. Does he feel the same way I do? Does he feel this growing desire too? Or is it all just a passing thing, a momentary curiosity that will fade when the last class ends? I keep wondering if I should follow this impulse, if I should let this desire speak louder. Every time he gets closer, my body responds without me wanting to, and the doubt only grows. It's as if a part of me wants to take a step forward, while the other hesitates, afraid of the consequences. Did you like this story? So, leave a comment telling us what you thought, and, if you've experienced something similar, share it with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any new content. Here, we always bring life stories, reflections, and real experiences, all with great sincerity. Thank you for watching until the end and for being part of this journey. See you in the next video.